Hello, you wonderful people. Welcome to another episode of Watchlist. Basically, think of this as like a monthly TV guide for me to let you know what and when stuff that I'm interested in, that maybe you're interested in too, is coming out. Like always, if you look in the description down below, I include any links to any trailers that may be available to anything I talk about in this watch list. First up, on May 2nd on the channel USA, we have the season 3 premiere of Colony, which I'm super excited about. If you're unfamiliar with Colony, it's about it's basically these aliens have invaded Earth, and basically it focuses on the Earth kind of dealing with it, but more so it focuses on a family in particular, the Bowman family, kind of dealing with this whole situation. Collaborators, and then there's a resistance. It's kind of just a whole like, or do you side with the aliens, do you fight back? It's a very good science fictional show, and I'm super excited to see what they do with season 3, especially direction season 2 took. And if you look at the previews and trailers and stuff that have popped up for season 3, it's kind of showing it kind of taking place outside of the LA block and stuff like that, which obviously if you haven't watched the show, that won't mean as much to you, but I'm excited to see what a lot of stuff they brought up. Obviously, if you haven't seen the trailers or you're trying to avoid the trailers, I won't talk about anything other specifically that came up, but it's kind of giving it a little taste. It's kind of like it seems like we're going to learn a little bit more about the raps this season. If you're also curious, like, you can check out a nerd mode that I recently did, me kind of doing a like rundown, a little bit introduction of Colony. And also, if you were just curious anyway about checking out the show, one place is in fact Netflix, because they do have the 1st and 2nd season. So, and also on that day, a new YouTube Red series called Cobra Kai, which is kind of interesting. Basically, it takes place 34 years after the original Karate Kid movie, and which is interesting because it's like, I think because you know there's sequels. It just kind of seems like it's focusing on the continuity of the first movie, because there's 3 Karate Kid movies, right? Like amongst like the original movies, there were 3, right? I think so. I think only the first 2 dealt with Daniel. Like the 3rd one dealt with someone else. Wasn't it a girl in the 3rd one? I don't remember the like Karate Kid movies at all. It's been years since I've seen them. I've seen bits and pieces like over the years, but I haven't like sat down and watched them in a very, very long time. But nevertheless, it seems like this one, obviously with the name Cobra Kai, is focusing more on Johnny. Basically life hasn't gone the way he wanted it to. I don't know whether it's necessarily like, oh, he suffered that defeat, and I guess maybe because he's an asshole, it kind of shook his like demeanor and pride, and just, or maybe it's just kind of like things just haven't worked out over the course of the past 34 years, and basically he's trying to bring back Cobra Kai. He almost has like this Karate Kid moment, which is kind of interesting, whereas like Mr. Miyagi brought in Daniel, kind of taught him how to defend himself, like taught him martial arts, and kind of will give him balance and stuff like that. And it seems like Johnny's doing the same thing for someone else, but obviously his message is a little different than Mr. Miyagi's, and obviously Cobra Kai's approach has always been very different than Mr. Miyagi. So it seems like Johnny's the biggest focus of this. It's kind of like interesting getting that flip side of things. Kind of like I said, I don't remember the original movie, so maybe it's a situation of maybe you did get to see that kind of bit of Cobra Kai, but obviously the story focused mainly on Daniel. This time it seems like it's focused on the other side of things, that he's not trying to make Cobra Kai the same Cobra Kai that it was before. I don't know, it seems very interesting. Do note this isn't a movie, it is a TV show. From what I think I heard, I think all the episodes are coming out at once on that day. So, and on May 4th on Netflix, we have a new series called The Rain. Basically, it's kind of like a epidemic, essentially. It's happening. Basically, the rain is infecting people and it kills them, but those people, it's not like a zombie thing, it is more just like a virus thing of like, but the moment it gets in your system because of anything connected to the rain, you can pass it on to other people. So basically it seems like it focuses on this, girl and her brother, because basically they had been hiding out in this bunker for like 5 years because their dad left, and he said he'd come back, but he didn't come back in all that time. And it's like, oh, he's trying to protect his son because his son could be the one to help with all this. Even the dad was like, yeah, I have to be the one, that I can be the only one who fixes this. So it might be one of those things like the world became the way it is because of some crazy science experiment or something like that. Like why the rain will all of a sudden start doing that to people. Like, I don't know, it seems like maybe that's kind of like a mystery aspect over the course of the season you'll probably potentially figure out. But it is that situation of things being the way they are. It turns in kind of like a apocalypse type of situation of like everything kind of gets treated like a zombie infection of like, no, that person's infected, we have to kill them or they're going to infect us and we're going to die too. So, and on May 11th we have The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, which I didn't even know was a thing. It's kind of a reboot popping up on Amazon Prime, which is kind of so interesting. So I checked out the trailer today. I said, obviously, like, the last Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon. I think I was recently talking to someone about Rocky and Bullwinkle, and I brought up the fact is I noticed there hadn't been a reboot yet, which is kind of interesting that now there is one. I don't know if there's subsequently been one since like the old Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoons, which I have memories of those because like I remember watching those when I was younger, like on channels like Boomerang and stuff. Like it's been a long time, but it seems aesthetically, I mean obviously just the animation style is one big difference, but even just like the approach to the show seems very different. It seems like it is kind of like a, oh man, like our heroes stumble upon situations and end up saving the world. So I don't know if it's going to necessarily be like, oh, it has an overarching like plot to it, but it does seem like it's probably like an episodical thing, like, you know, typical most cartoons typically are these days. I don't know if it's segmented like because I remember the original cartoon was very segmented about having like the whole Mr. Peabody thing. Like they'd have like intermissions where it'd be like, oh yeah, here's Mr. Peabody and Sherman, which is obviously became its own thing in like its own like movie and stuff like that. So it seems like it's just full on Rocky and Bullwinkle and nothing else. Obviously Boris and Natasha make their return. It seems very interesting. I'm sure it's probably meant to be, you know, mainly for kids, or maybe you're just someone like this me that's like, oh, I actually kind of remember the cartoons. I'd be kind of interested to see what it is all about. Interestingly enough, because I like looked this up on YouTube, I also like obviously one of the top results is going to be like the movie, the live action movie. I looked at the trailer for that. I was like, holy crap, there's a lot of people in this. Like John Goodman, I think Jason George, Rene Russo, Robert De Niro was like the main antagonist. I was like, holy crap, Piper Perabo was in it. I was like, what? I have not seen that movie in years. I'd completely forgot. I was like, wow, there's so many people in this movie that I was like, wow, that was crazy. So it kind of caught me off guard. That was kind of interesting. I kind of expected that movie to be older than what it was. I wasn't expecting, I mean, it's still old because now at this time it's 18 years old, but I didn't know that that movie came out like in 2000. So that was just kind of interesting. Just kind of a little tidbit of stuff I'm just adding on there as well. On May 18th, also on Netflix, we have the movie Cargo, which has Martin Freeman in it, which is pretty awesome. Essentially, it's him taking care of his child. Basically, he's been an actor. It's kind of a zombie movie, but it's one of those movies where, yeah, like the zombie thing is just a theme of it. It's not the biggest focus of it. It's like basically he's infected. Now the clock is ticking down and he has to find a way to save his child, like take her somewhere safe before he completely changes. And it seems like that's the biggest focus of it. It isn't necessarily, it's one of those things where it's like, it's probably not going to matter what happened, how this happened. It's just, this is the way the world is, and this is just one person's story. As he progresses through, you'll probably get like smaller stories as you kind of go along, but it focuses on his character trying to protect this child. And obviously with situations like this, kind of like I brought up earlier, just kind of one of those apocalypse situations, you see even regular people go a little crazy and do things for survival. Kind of the nasty side of humanity kind of comes out, so it seems like that's going to be a big focus of it too. So at a time where it seems like there is no hope, like what hope do you have to hold on to, you know? Interestingly enough, it's actually based on a short film, which is kind of interesting. So I don't know, I would assume maybe it's a short film under the same name too. If I am able to track down the short film, I will try and add a link in the description down below so you can check that out as well in case you're curious. And finally, on May 30th on NBC, we have the series premiere of Reverie, which it's an interesting series that I've only seen 1 or 2 commercials for, but it's kind of got me interested. It's got Sarah Shahi in it, which is like super awesome. Like obviously you might know her from Carmen on the L Word. She was in this show called, this USA show, it was sadly short-lived, called Fairly Legal. But the thing I know her most from, and I think it's the coolest thing, is and it's the most recent thing I know her from, is playing Shaw on the series Person of Interest, which is pretty awesome. I've loved her as Shaw. So I'm super excited to see her in a series. It seems like basically there's this new technology that basically puts people in virtual reality, but people don't want to come out for whatever reason. Stuff that they're dealing with, they'd rather be in this virtual reality rather than kind of deal with their stuff in the real world. And basically it seems like she's kind of a negotiator, and for what I was reading, and she's kind of been brought in to kind of help these people. But from what I was reading, it also seems like she's got her own stuff that she's got to deal with. I guess it's like the world kind of like bends to the person in it. So it's kind of like, oh, the moment she goes into it, the reality starts bending to her. I'm curious to see the structure of it is what I'm trying to get at. Is it going to be her going in one person at a time, coming back to the real world? Or will she kind of be there the entire time trying to convince these people to pop out? And that brings this month's watch list to an end. Like always, if there's something coming out this month that you're interested in, that you think maybe me or someone else might be interested in that I didn't bring up, don't be afraid to leave it in the comments down below. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this video. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, well, light to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.